What if I told you the guitarist behind Woodstock's most explosive moment survived Hamburg's mud wrestling clubs and a 500,000-person crowd, then vanished into silence? 4 gold albums that created millions of fans. Faster than Clapton, louder than Page. But the speed that made him famous became the cage that broke him. No scandal, just burnout. And a legacy erased from history, while lesser bands made the Hall of Fame. This is the rise and fall of 10 years after. The story begins in the grey post-war industrial landscape of Nottingham and Mansfield. While most British teenagers in 1960 were chasing polished pop sounds, 2 young men named Alvin Lee and Leo Lyons were diving into something raw: American blues and jazz. Alvin Lee's father collected records by Big Bill Broonzy and Lonnie Johnson, names that meant nothing to average British kids but everything to those who understood the roots of rhythm. This was a technical vocabulary, a jazz-blues syncopation that separated craftsmen from imitators. Lee and Lyons started young, navigating the rigorous beat group circuit under various names. Ivan J and the J-Cats, then the J-Birds. They weren't chasing radio-friendly singles. They were building a reputation for instrumental prowess. Then came Hamburg. In 1962, performing as the J-Birds, they secured a residency at the notorious Star Club, the same venue where the Beatles had earned their stripes weeks earlier. But this wasn't romantic. This was an endurance test. Before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Picture this: a 2-room apartment above a mud wrestling club. Drummer Rick Lee recalled walking in to find one man on the toilet, another in the bath, and a third washing socks in the bath water. Then, a local gangster fired a gas gun into the room for entertainment. The performance schedule was brutal. 45-minute sets followed by 15-minute breaks. 8 hours a night, competing with street chaos just to keep an audience. This was music as survival, and it forged them into something unbreakable. Alvin Lee later reflected on how his legendary speed wasn't calculated. "I never tried to play fast," he admitted. "If anything, I tried to slow it down a bit. With the adrenaline of live gigs, it just used to come out that way." By 1966, the lineup had crystallized. Alvin Lee on guitar and vocals, Leo Lyons on bass, Rick Lee on drums, Chick Churchill on keyboards. They needed a name 10 years after. They signed with a record label in 1967 and released their self-titled debut. The album didn't set charts on fire, but it established credibility. They became a staple at London's Marquee Club, building a following among musicians who recognized what they were hearing. American music played by British kids who understood it better than most Americans. 10 years after didn't arrive as manufactured pop stars. They were working-class heroes who had survived the trenches, who had earned every note through sweat and repetition. And America was about to find out. By 1968, 10 years after had conquered the UK underground. But underground success in Britain meant nothing if you wanted to truly matter. For that, you needed America. And unlike the Beatles or Stones, who'd relied on television and radio, 10 years after would have to do it the hard way. The American breakthrough began with a gamble that nearly bankrupted them. In June 1968, they launched their first US tour, 7 weeks through the ballroom circuit, facilitated by legendary promoter Bill Graham. This wasn't glamorous. This was loading your own equipment, sleeping in cheap motels, driving through the night. Alvin Lee recalled losing approximately $35,000 on that first tour. For a band scraping by in London clubs, this was devastating. But something magical was happening inside those American ballrooms. At the Fillmore East and West, 10 years after developed a reputation money couldn't buy. They became known as the band that could sting any act that dared to follow them. Promoters called them back, not because they had hit singles, but because they delivered something rare, a live show that justified the ticket price. The irony wasn't lost on Alvin Lee. The strange thing was that we had gone to what I considered to be the home of the blues, he reflected. But they'd never heard of most of them. We were recycling American music and they were calling it the English sound. Bill Graham personally ensured their return. Frank Zappa reportedly offered bassist Leo Lyons a role in a movie about the choreographers of rock and roll after watching him shake his head violently during solos. During this period, Lee's famous guitar, nicknamed Big Red, was evolving. He added a Fender Stratocaster pickup, to help create a versatile tone that could cut through high-volume stage environments. Technical innovation born from practical necessity. Their albums began climbing the Billboard 200 through word of mouth. Stonehenge reached number 61 in the US and number 6 in the UK. These weren't massive numbers, but they represented momentum. Every tour brought bigger venues, more enthusiastic crowds. For the audience that discovered them in these years, 10 years after felt like an insider secret. You had to be in the know to find them. They were a musician's band, respected by peers for technical proficiency and raw power. And then, in August of 1969, everything changed in 9 minutes. The final evening of Woodstock, Sunday, August 17th, 1969. Approximately 8:15 p.m., a sea of mud stretched as far as the eye could see. 500,000 people who'd endured rain, chaos, and shortages for 3 days. The festival was winding down. Instead, it was about to witness one of rock's most electrifying moments. 10 years after, arrived by helicopter. Alvin Lee never forgot the approach. "I was hanging out over 500,000 people," he recalled, "and there was an amazing smell of marijuana coming up. Not the kind of thing you forget easily. But conditions were nightmarish. A massive rainstorm had soaked the stage and equipment. High humidity was causing guitars to go out of tune constantly. Festival organizers warned the band they couldn't go on. The risk of electrocution was real. Alvin Lee's response was pure rock and roll. "Oh, come on, if I die at Woodstock, we'll sell lots of records." The technical struggles were immediate. They had to start "Good Morning Little Schoolgirl" 4 times because Lee refused to play out of tune. Without electronic tuners, he had to tune Leo Lyons' bass by ear on stage. Challenging since Lyons was reportedly tone deaf, but they pushed through. And then came the finale that would define them forever. I'm Going Home. 9 minutes of pure, unrelenting energy. Alvin Lee's hands became a blur across the fretboard, moving at speeds that seemed physically impossible. The camera crew, struggling with rain and logistics all weekend, had only managed to capture this final song, and what they captured was lightning in a bottle. But there's a detail from that performance that perfectly captures Woodstock's spirit. After the rainstorm, a young man had been huddling around a trash fire. He had one possession of value, a large watermelon. Instead of eating it himself, he carried that watermelon through the mud, through the crowd, all the way to the stage, and gave it to Alvin Lee. In the documentary footage, you can see it, the watermelon rolling across the stage, hitting Lee's feet. He picked it up, held it high for the crowd, and carried it off like a trophy. That image, muddy, exhausted kids sharing what little they had, with the musicians giving them everything, that was Woodstock at its purest. That performance is a flashbulb memory. It wasn't just entertainment. It was witnessing something impossible made real, the ultimate triumph of a live band overcoming the elements. 10 years after had gone from underground favorites to world-shaking icons. But what they didn't know was that this moment of pure triumph would become the cage that trapped them. The release of the Woodstock film in 1970 changed everything. Suddenly, 10 years after, weren't just a respected live band, they were superstars. The documentary played in theaters across America, and every showing introduced thousands of new fans to that 9-minute explosion. The commercial response was immediate. Their album, Shh, climbed to number 4 in the UK and number 20 in the US. Cricklewood Green followed, reaching number 4 in the UK and number 14 in the US. Then came Watt, and finally, A Space and Time, which went platinum in the United States. They had a UK top 10 single with Love Like a Man, innovative for featuring different playing speeds on each side. They were headlining Madison Square Garden and the Los Angeles Forum. By 1971, they had toured the United States 10 times, 4 consecutive gold albums, arena shows selling out across 2 continents. This was the dream realized. But success at this level came with a price no one talks about in magazine profiles. The relentless touring schedule was grinding them down, night after night, playing the same songs for crowds who wanted the same experience they'd seen in the film. Alvin Lee felt the shift viscerally. "My heroes are blues musicians," he reflected, "and I was becoming a pop star, which I didn't want." Woodstock made 10 years after, but in fact, it was the beginning of the end. To me, It was a big trap. The Guitar Hero label became suffocating. Lee had studied the subtleties of jazz blues phrasing, but audiences didn't want subtlety. They wanted speed. They wanted "I'm Going Home" played exactly like the film, night after night. Solos, instead of being jams, they were getting to be the same every night, Lee lamented. We were turning into a performing jukebox, really. Then came the biggest hit of their career, and the final irony. "I'd Love to Change the World," released in 1971, became their most enduring song. It was melodic, commercial, more accessible than their blues material, but Alvin Lee rarely played it live. The transition between acoustic and electric guitar was too complicated, and he didn't care for the song as much as his blues material. The track that introduced millions to 10 years after represented everything Lee was trying to escape. Management kept the band members apart, fearing they were a bad influence on each other. Chick Churchill and Leo Lyons felt increasingly marginalized as media focused solely on Lee. Meanwhile, Lee felt isolated by his bandmates' resentment. The machine was still running. The platinum records kept arriving, but the engine was overheating. By 1973, something had broken inside. 10 years after, that couldn't be repaired. The Brotherhood forged in Hamburg, and America's ballrooms had fractured under the weight of expectation and exhaustion. The performances were still technically proficient, but the joy was gone. Alvin Lee retreated into what he later called a wall of dope smoke, trying to cope with the pressure of being the fastest guitar in the West when all he wanted was to play the blues. Then came the St. Louis riot, August 28, 1971, Kiel Auditorium. The show was abruptly ended, and what happened next revealed how far the rock scene had fallen from Woodstock idealism. Fans threw chairs and wine bottles. The MC was knocked unconscious by a bottle. Police arrived with guns and cotton wool in their ears, sneering at the band and looking for any excuse to escalate. Alvin Lee described the horror. You had police with guns and cotton wool in their ears, sneering at the band and looking for half a chance to beat up the audience. It was awful. It had all gone wrong. This wasn't the counterculture anymore. This was corporate rock, violent crowds, and a music industry that had lost its soul. The Woodstock spirit was dead. The band limped forward, but everyone knew the end was coming. Their 1974 album, Positive Vibrations, failed to achieve previous chart heights, peaking at only number 81 in the US and failing to chart in the UK. After a final tour in 1974, the band quietly dissolved. No farewell tour, no dramatic announcement, no public feuding, just silence. Bassist Leo Lyons later summarized the toll. "Alvin was the closest thing I had to a brother, but the bickering had become a vicious circle that no amount of platinum records could fix. And just like that, the fastest guitar in rock went quiet." Following the dissolution, Alvin Lee sought refuge in music on his own terms. Not the performing jukebox of arena rock, but exploration and collaboration with peers he respected. His first major solo project revealed what he'd been missing. On the Road to Freedom, released in 1973 and recorded at his home, Space Studios, featured George Harrison, Ron Wood, Steve Winwood, and Mylon Lefevre. Mylon Lefevre recalled the relief in Alvin's voice. "One night he picked up his acoustic guitar and started playing easy Hank Williams tunes. I said, 'It's not fair having to be Captain Speedfingers just because people pin that label on you.'" The album moved toward country, blues, and gospel. It was the mellow side of his musicianship, suppressed by the demands of the Woodstock legacy. But nostalgia has a powerful pull. In August 1983, the original quartet reunited for the Reading Festival, delivering a rousing set recorded for the BBC. The tracklist included Love Like a Man, Good Morning Little Schoolgirl, and a 10-minute Going Home that proved the magic could still be summoned. For fans who had watched the band fracture, this was redemption. The fire was still there. The Brotherhood, at least for one night, was whole again. They recorded a reunion album, About Time, in 1989, and continued touring sporadically. But the magic could never be permanently recaptured. In later years, Alvin Lee expressed his preference for clubs over arenas. "I'm glad I'm not playing Madison Square Garden tonight." The final split came in 2003, when Lyons, Churchill, and Rick Lee replaced Alvin with guitarist Joe Gooch and continued touring. Alvin Lee was clear he would never reunite with them and did not endorse this version. On March 6, 2013, Alvin Lee passed away due to complications from surgery. He He was 68 years old. The fastest guitar in rock had played his final note. Today, 10 years after, occupies a unique space in rock history, simultaneously unforgettable and overlooked. They are forever anchored to that 9-minute Woodstock performance. A band that was once as big as Led Zeppelin, but now feels like a hidden gem. Their exclusion from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame remains a point of heated debate. 8 consecutive UK Top 40 albums, 4 consecutive gold records in America, the guitar solo that defined a generation. Yet somehow, they've been written out of the official narrative. Gibson honored Big Red with a custom shop reissue, citing Alvin Lee as the greatest exponent of the guitar's model. Guitarists from Joe Bonamassa to younger blues rock fans continue to cite Lee's speed and feel as a primary influence. A Space and Time remains a landmark of the early 70s, and that Woodstock performance, it's consistently cited as a top 5 moment from the festival. The visual and sonic representation of 1969's raw intensity. The band continues to tour today with drummer Rick Lee, keeping the name alive for a new generation, though purists debate the validity of any lineup without Alvin. The music endures on classic rock radio, in documentaries, in the memories of those who were there. For the fans who lived through it, 10 years after represents something that can't be quantified by chart positions or Hall of Fame plaques. They represent the raw, unpolished spirit of 1969, a reminder that for one brief weekend in a muddy field, a kid with a red guitar really could change the world. The disappearance of 10 years after wasn't a failure. It was a human choice to prioritize music over madness, authenticity over spectacle. They burned bright for a few perfect years, and then they walked away on their own terms. That's not a tragedy, that's dignity. 10 years after proved that the brightest fires burn fastest. They arrived from Hamburg's clubs, conquered America's ballrooms, and delivered Woodstock's most electrifying moment. But the cage of expectation proved stronger than platinum records. No scandal destroyed them, just exhaustion. The quiet collapse of men who'd given everything. Their legacy isn't in the Hall of Fame. It's in that 9-minute solo, still shaking fields decades later. Do you remember where you were when you first saw that Woodstock performance? Drop your memory in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories from rock's golden era.